Hello there, everyone. Hi, I'm Dr. Tharp. And as usual, I am here tonight to share with you pearls about how you can battle and reverse blood sugar issues. I give tips every night on how you can, the habits that you can form, and the different things that you can do for better blood sugar control. Ultimately, the thing I do is reversal. That's the ultimate goal, is to reverse prediabetes and type 2 diabetes naturally. A majority of the people who I work with have come to me because they were told they needed to start on medications. The most common medication is metformin. That's the most common starting medication. And many women come to me and are determined not to be on it. So they want to do the natural approach to reversing or addressing prediabetes and type 2 diabetes. So I'm on a mission to help those people who want to achieve that goal to do that. Achieving reversing prediabetes and type 2 diabetes naturally is it's definitely a system. It's system based. So there are other factors that come into play, but I'm going to focus tonight on nutrition, and the area that I'm going to focus on is protein. So the other day I did a live, and someone asked me to address protein specifically. The person who left the comment wanted to know exactly how much protein she needed in order to help control her blood sugar issues. So I promised I would share that with everyone. So that's why I'm here tonight. So, if you've watched my prior lives, you know I'm always stressing the importance of protein. We don't get enough protein in our diet. And I think that is a good starting point. If you are looking for ways to address blood sugar, a good starting point is to start getting more protein in your diet. So a majority of the women who I work with, when they start eating one meal a day, okay, and they're not getting enough protein in. In order to get enough protein, you have to be eating, and you have to eat multiple meals for the day, usually 3 to 4 meals for the day. So one of the starting points within the program that I have is we learn to eat. And believe it or not, we learn to eat and still control blood sugar and still lose weight. And so that is the ultimate goal, right? You want to be comfortable and you want to feel good in your body as you're achieving blood sugar control. So tonight I wanted to discuss specifically protein and why it's so important. So several points I want to share with everyone. Number one is you want to get protein in every meal, breakfast, lunch, dinner. You want to get at least 30 grams of protein in each meal. And I'm going to break that down for you so you understand what 30 grams looks like. But you want to be getting at least 30 grams. So, for example, a lot of people will tell me, oh, I had an egg sandwich for breakfast, or I had an egg and a bagel for breakfast. And an egg only has 6 grams of protein. So right there, you can see that there's a huge difference between 6 and 30 grams. There's a huge gap there. So right away, I can tell you most people are only eating 1 or 2 eggs for the morning. And remember, it doesn't have to be just eggs for breakfast. Your protein can be anything for breakfast, anything you want it to be, anything you feel for it can be. I'm using egg because when most people start with me, they are of the thinking that it has to be egg every morning. So most people are only getting 6 grams of protein in the morning for breakfast, and that trend continues throughout the day. Most people they're so busy at work, they're so busy overall, they're skipping lunch. Then they're waiting until dinner time to eat, and then they're famished and they're only eating again maybe one piece of protein. So for the whole day, if they have, for example, a chicken thigh, for the whole day, you're looking at 36 grams of protein for the whole day, when you really should be getting a minimum of 100 grams. Now, these are just ballpark numbers, okay? Because every body and every person is different. Every body has a different need, okay? It depends on your weight, on your activity. And so those are the things that you have to really figure out on an individual basis. So that's why I encourage you to do a one-on-one with me, because that is where we break down the individual numbers. But for the most part, you can't go wrong with getting 30 grams of protein in each meal. Some people, it might be a little bit less. Some people, it might be a little bit more. A good way to know what your specific protein need is if you eat 1 gram of protein per pound of goal body weight. So if you're 150 pounds, but you know that your ideal body weight or your goal body weight is 130, you're going to be eating 130 grams of protein for the day. Okay, so that, again, a ballpark. Every person is different. And, it's really a discussion to be had with a medical professional, um, because we want to make sure your body can take that much protein as well. But that is the ballpark. So you want to be getting 30 grams of protein in each meal, at least 100 grams every day. Now, let's talk about why protein is so important. So let's talk about number one is when you get protein in, protein acts like a buffer. It prevents the rapid absorption of carbohydrates. So if you have 30 grams of protein, let's say a chicken breast, for example, and you have a piece, some rice, you have half a cup of brown rice with it, your blood sugar is not going to spike dramatically from that half cup of brown rice, because that amount of protein that you had with it acts as a buffer. So it allows very slow breakdown and slow absorption of the carbohydrates that are ultimately converted to glucose in your blood, so your blood sugar. And so it buffers that spike. So instead of having a very rapid spike, you have a very slow peak, and then it comes back down. So that is the number one reason protein is important. And it might be the reason that you'll see a rapid change in your blood sugar if you actually try that out. So try that out this week, 30 grams of protein with each meal, and then see what your blood sugar does about 2 hours after you have that meal. And I will bet you anything that spike is going to be lower than you're used to. Now, the second reason that protein is so important is protein, it promotes muscle preservation. Okay. It's really important to keep muscle on our bodies. And the challenge that we have as women, as actually everyone, but women, I'm specifically talking about women tonight, is that as we age, we lose muscle mass. After the age of 30, we start to lose muscle mass at the rate of 1 to 3% every 10 years. For those of us who become very sedentary, for those of us who are struggling with illness, or then that muscle loss can be even worse. That muscle loss can be even more accelerated. Muscle is a metabolic engine in our bodies. It's what uses glucose. So when we have less muscle, we accumulate more glucose in our blood because we don't have the muscle to help us use the glucose. So the whole goal of long-term blood sugar control and long-term reversal of high blood sugars is to preserve our muscle mass. And how do we prevent that rapid decline in our muscle mass? Is by eating enough protein. So again, the average American diet does not have enough protein. So we lose muscle at a very rapid rate as we age. And that is why, we could be eating the same, we could be eating even less. And by time we could have been doing that in our 30s or 40s, and by time we hit our 50s, we're hearing about insulin resistance. And the reason that is happening is because of muscle loss. So it's really important to eat enough protein so you're hanging on to muscle. And even better, you're eating protein to hang on to the muscle that you already have. But even better is to build more muscle on top of that. And that is a good way of reversing insulin resistance. So that is the second reason that protein is so important. The third reason is that it helps to promote fat loss as well. So how does it do that is that when we eat enough protein, number one, we preserve our muscle mass, and our muscle mass is what helps us burn calories. Okay. So that's the number one reason. But the other reason it can help with fat loss is that we have less of an appetite. When we eat enough protein, we don't get those cravings for sugary snacks. We don't get those cravings for carb heavy meals. We're not eating several snacks throughout the day. When we have a protein heavy meal, you are good for 4 hours. You're not going to want to eat. You're going to notice a dramatic improvement in cravings. And so, with that comes weight loss. Of course, you have to incorporate physical activity into that. Again, resistance training is important, but protein does help promote fat loss. And most people who are have type 2 diabetes or who are pre-diabetic, a vast majority of those people are struggling with excess body fat. And I can speak personally to that. I was 30 pounds overweight. And everything I'm telling you to do, I've done it and I still do it today. I learned more about nutrition when I was going through my own health crisis. When I realized that I was approaching pre-diabetes, when I realized I was about to be put on blood pressure medications, I realized I had to make a change, and I realized protein was a huge part of getting results. Okay, so making sure you're eating enough protein to hang on to muscle, build the muscle, but also to help burn fat because it helps to suppress our appetite, so we're not snacking or eating, carb heavy meals throughout the day. Now the big thing here is, let me make sure I covered all the points. Okay, so I pretty much covered the big points about protein. Now, how much do you need? Again, 1 gram of protein per pound of body fat. So if you're 150 pounds, you need to be 130 pounds. That's a healthy weight for you. Then you're gonna eat 130 grams of protein. Again, it's everybody is different. It could be a little bit less, it could be a little bit more. That is where it's important to have a discussion with someone who can tell you what your numbers should be, your exact numbers should be. And you want to that so let's say 130 grams or 100 grams of protein, you want to spread that across 3 different meals for the day. So 120 grams split three through across 3 meals is 40 grams per meal. Or if you're having 4 meals for the day, then it's 30 grams per meal. So that's just to give you an idea. Now, what does that suggest? I'm using the word grams, right? And so in your mind, you're saying, well, what is 30 grams? What does that look like? And that is one of the reasons I do say as having a scale is important. A nutrition scale is important because now you'll have more of an understanding of what food looks like in grams. And so a food scale does help. So if you have one in the kitchen, you can measure your protein to get an idea of exactly if you're hitting those goals, if you're hitting 30 grams of protein per meal. But another way is just to ballpark it, right? Again, I don't encourage ballparking. Exact numbers when you're starting out is important. But just so you have an idea of what you might want to do this week, for example, 30 grams of protein is a chicken breast. A chicken breast, skinless chicken breast, that's about 30 grams of protein. 30 grams of protein is about 16 pieces of shrimp. 30 grams of protein is about a chicken thigh. Um, 30 grams of protein is about 5 ounces of salmon. um, 30 grams of protein is okay, in eggs is about 5 eggs. Okay, so remember each egg has 6 grams of protein. You're looking at about 5 eggs. Egg whites, so if you want to hit 30 grams of protein with egg whites, you're looking at about a cup of egg whites. Tuna, about a can and a half of tuna would equate to about 30 grams of protein. Greek yogurt is another good source of protein, another good breakfast. If you're looking to move away from egg, then Greek yogurt makes a good breakfast as well. So 1.25 cup of Greek yogurt. Beef, about 4 ounces of lean beef is okay. and ground turkey, 4 ounces of ground turkey. So that is about 30 grams of protein. So if a food scale helps again, and if you're going to ballpark it, then it helps to know a chicken breast or a chicken thigh is about 30 grams of protein. Now, for those of you who are vegetarian, so a question that I get a lot, and actually something I see a lot, are people become vegetarians because they've heard or they think that if you become a vegetarian, that's a good way to reverse insulin resistance. And I can tell you right now, the answer is no. So if you're considering becoming a vegetarian to combat insulin resistance for no other reason but to combat insulin resistance, so pre-diabetes or type 2 diabetes, I will say don't do that. Because already you've heard you should understand why I'm saying that. Protein is important and meat is a quality source of protein. So if you become a vegetarian, you become even more protein deficient. Now, for those of you who are vegetarians, it's a little bit more challenging. It takes a little bit more savvy. And again, this is where having that additional expert help comes in, because the plant-based proteins are also very high in carbohydrates. And we know the higher the carbohydrate intake, then the more challenging it is to control blood sugars. Meat-based proteins do not spike your blood sugar. Okay, they're not going to affect your blood sugar in any way. But plant-based proteins will, because they have a carbohydrate component to it. So if you're thinking that I want to be a vegetarian to solve this problem of insulin resistance, don't do it. It's going to be bad news, and you're going to have trouble getting enough protein and then balancing your carbohydrates at the same time. For those of you who are vegetarian, again, it takes a little bit more savvy. You're really going to have to tweak the numbers. But good sources of plant-based proteins are lentils, high in fiber as well, chickpeas, quinoa, edamame is another good source. Um, and then you have pea protein powder, which is another good source if you want to do protein shakes and so on. So those are good sources of plant-based protein. But again, you now have to understand how to achieve that balance between enough protein intake and balancing your carbohydrates. So that is where I highly recommend that you book that one-on-one call with me. You enroll in the program, because that is where it does take some expert knowledge and some expert guidance. So don't become a vegetarian if you are if you're solely wanting to overcome insulin resistance. And that's pretty much it for my talk. So protein, protein, protein. So this week, I think, it's easy enough. Add up, make sure you have a good amount of protein on each plate, on your plate, each meal. Make sure you have enough protein for breakfast. One egg isn't going to cut it. If you don't want to have 5 whole eggs, you can have 2 eggs and a cup of egg whites. And there you balance, fat intake, and you get enough protein. So that should be easy enough to do this week. And eat. That is the other thing. Another issue that I see is we are so busy. We are so busy that we don't eat. And that's another reason we're protein deficient. And that's another reason we're spiking our blood sugars even though we're not eating. Because we tend to snack if we're not eating regular meals, and we're not eating enough proteins. And those snacks tend to be carb heavy. So with that, I am going to close off, but I am open to any questions or comments. Someone left a request for many different topic areas. This was one of them. So I hope this was helpful. I hope this will, help you implement this into your lifestyle. And I hope that you'll see a difference with your blood sugars. If you don't, then very likely that is where, again, everybody's different. And sometimes it takes diving into other issues. What are you doing? What are you not doing? What can you do better? So if you're not noticing blood sugars just by making that adjustment, very likely there are other areas that need to be adjusted, because the process of reversing prediabetes or type 2 diabetes is what I call a system. And you're really not going to achieve it unless you get that system together and going well. Um, with that, I'm open to questions or suggestions about topics. So if you want, just go ahead, put in the comments a topic you're interested in, or a question that you have, or something you're struggling with. Because if you have that question or if you have that struggle, very likely someone else has that too. So it benefits everyone. So with that, I am going to close off. But please feel free again to leave a comment, and I will definitely follow up with any comments or suggestions that you leave.